Hello and welcome. Pele is regarded as the greatest footballer of all times. On the 29th of December 2022, the world received the shocking news that Pele had died. He died at the age of 82. Many of us have heard of the name and the fame of Pele, but only few of us have been able to know his story. In this video, I shall tell you the life story of Pele, as well as revealing to you one of the greatest mistakes that he has made in his entire life. Stay tuned and let's begin. Edson Arantes do Nascimento, also known as Pele, was born on the 23rd of October 1940. He was born to a very simple family. His dad was a known footballer and his mother was a housewife. Pele's father had played football for the Brazilian national team. On one occasion, when the Brazilian national team failed to win the World Cup, his dad was weeping bitterly. And Pele went to him and told him, "Dad, do not worry, I shall win for you the World Cup very soon." 8 years down the line, Pele was part of the squad that helped the Brazilian national team to win their first ever World Cup in 1958. Pele earned the nickname Ore, or the King in Portuguese, when he helped the country to win their first ever World Cup. Pele did not stop there. He went further to help the country to win 2 more World Cups in 1962 and 1970. It is worth mentioning that Pele is the only player on record in the whole world who has won the World Cup on 3 different occasions. No human being has been able to do that. Pele's journey with football started when he was just 15 years old, when he made his intentions known to his parents that he wanted to play football. His dad didn't have a problem, obviously because he was a former footballer, but his mom did not understand why his first son should play football. And the reason was simple. When his dad, who was now a former footballer, had an injury while playing football, all their hopes and aspirations, as well as their source of livelihood, ended with his father's career. They could no longer feed, and Pele had to resort to being a sous-chef boy for them to be able to make ends meet. His mother was not convinced that football is a profession that his son should take. But as fate will have it, Pele made his maiden appearance for Santos Football Club when he was just 15 years old. The following year, he made his debut appearance for the Brazilian national team. And just 1 year later, they were able to win their maiden World Cup in 1958. Pele is on record to be the one who popularized the popular saying, "the beautiful game." Pele is the one who single-handedly placed Brazil on the world map as the footballing country. Pele had a fantastic football career spanning over a period of 20 years. Within that period, Pele is on record to have won a Guinness World Record as the one who has scored the most career goals ever in the history of football. Pele scored a total of 1,279 goals in 1,363 appearances for both country and for club. This is a record that has never been broken, and I doubt if it will ever be broken by any human being who plays the round ladder we call football. Throughout his life, Pele married 3 times. Pele's first marriage was with a woman known as Rosemary Dosri Cholby, and they had 3 children together, namely Jennifer, Kelly, and Edino. Sadly, their marriage hit the rocks in 1982, and they had to file for a divorce. Pele remarried again, and this time around, he married a woman known as Asiria Segza Lemos, and they gave birth to 2 children, namely Joshua and Celeste. In 2008, unfortunately, the marriage hit the rocks, and Pele had to divorce again. Pele's 3rd and final marriage was with a woman known as Maria Oki, and they remained married until his death in December of 2022. Throughout his life and in all his marriages, Pele is known to have fathered 8 children, although there are other children whose names are not known public. As a matter of fact, Pele has admitted that he has had numerous affairs with different women that he may not know whether they resulted in children or not. There are some of the women that he may not be able to recollect them vividly. Sandra Regina Mercado Nascimento. Sandra Regina Mercado Nascimento is the 3rd child and daughter of Pele, who was born in 1963 as a result of an affair that Pele had with his mate known as Anicia Mercado. When Sandra was born, Pele refused to accept responsibility whatsoever for the birth of this child. He denied he was a father and refused to take care of her, and also refused to provide any DNA sample that would have been used to ascertain as to whether he is the father of Sandra or not. In 1991, when Sandra was a fully grown woman, she went to court to compel Pele to produce DNA sample that would be used in ascertaining whether he was the biological father of Sandra or not. Pele replied to the legal actions by countersuing the daughter with 13 legal actions. His aim was to protect himself so that the court will not rule that he had responsibility to look after his daughter. He did not want it to be that he had to pay any alimony or any compensation to the maid Anicia Mercado and her daughter Sandra Regina. All that while, Pele viewed his daughter's actions with a lot of suspicion. He was of the opinion that Sandra wanted to reap where she did not sow. He thought Sandra was a gold digger. Sandra wanted somebody she could genuinely call her father. Sandra did not give up. Even when Pele refused to submit DNA samples, Sandra went to court. In the year 1993, the court in Brazil granted Sandra the permission to use the surname of Pele Nascimento. They have been able to establish beyond reasonable doubt that Sandra was the biological daughter of Pele because they managed to get a DNA sample. Pele still did not find it necessary at this point in time to acknowledge Sandra as the biological daughter and to treat her as such. The Supreme Court of Brazil, however, threw out the case of Pele and therefore compelled him to acknowledge Sandra as a biological daughter. Pele still at this particular point in time still failed to acknowledge Sandra as the daughter. He publicly criticized Sandra in the press, making it to look as if Sandra's intention to be identified as the daughter of Pele was for economic reasons. All that while, Pele still suspected Sandra and thought that Sandra wanted his money. From 1996 onwards, although Pele was compelled by the Supreme Court to identify Sandra as the daughter, Pele refused to acknowledge her publicly and never shared any moment with Sandra. It is on record that Pele never had any conversation with her and they never shared any father and daughter relationship. On one occasion, he was quoted as saying, "She may be my biological daughter, but sentimentally, I do not care about her because I do not know her." This was a major blow to Sandra because she felt betrayed. The man that all that while he was trying hard to identify as the daughter didn't care less about her happiness, her reputation, and cared less about her existence. As far as Pele was concerned, Sandra did not exist. Sandra became very popular in Brazil, but for the wrong reasons. Sandra became known as the daughter of Pele he never recognized. Sandra capitalized on this particular popularity and decided to run for office. In fact, Sandra became so popular in the town of Santos that she ran for councillorship. Fortunately, she won. The people voted for her not because she was the daughter of Pele that was not acknowledged, but because of her tenacity and her drive to fight for what she believed is rightfully hers. Sandra published a book called The Daughter the King Never Wanted, and this book became a bestseller in Brazil and beyond. When Sandra later on realized that Pele cared little or nothing about her existence, she decided to move on with her life. She did not need any economic benefit from Pele because she was well-to-do and she had a political career to build. Whilst in office as chancellor, Sandra decided that she was going to make DNA tests free of charge for women who were in situations that were similar to hers, and she did thousands of DNA tests free of charge for anybody who came forward and requested for same. Life was beautiful and was going on for Sandra until she was diagnosed with a disease. Sandra was diagnosed with breast cancer. Many people at this particular point thought that Pele would have softened his heart of stone and at least at this point give Sandra that particular love and attention that she required. But Pele would not budge. Pele simply did not care at all about anything. Even the huge financial component that came along with the treatment of breast cancer, Pele did not simply care at all. He never contributed a penny or a dime towards the treatment of Sandra. Sandra was left all alone by herself. and she fought the battle with cancer without the support of her biological father. Sandra kept fighting the battle against cancer. She fought and fought and fought and fought until she was 42 years in 2006. Unfortunately, Sandra lost the battle to cancer. People at this particular point thought that Pele would have reconsidered his decision and at least show mercy. He would have made a U-turn so that he can make a reconciliation, if not even for Sandra, who was now late, at least for her husband and children. But Pele simply did not care. Pele didn't want to have anything to do with Sandra at all. What is even more tragic was that when Sandra was to be buried, Pele turned up in the day of the funeral with 2 wreaths of flowers. When Pele got to the funeral, people thought he was going to be the one that will move forward and present the wreath and lay them by the coffin of his biological daughter Sandra. But instead, Pele did the opposite. He rather delegated someone to do that on his behalf. And even what was even more shocking was that the flowers did not bear the name of Pele. It rather bore the name of his company. So whether in life or in death, Sandra never had the opportunity to enjoy that fatherly love. Pele should have at this time understood that whatever thing that happened between himself and his mate at that time in 1963 was their decision, and Sandra was innocent and was not supposed to be held responsible for whatever decision. As far as many people were concerned, Sandra was innocent and should have been warmly accepted by Pele, because Pele himself publicly acknowledged that he had several affairs with different women, many of whom he did not even know whether it resulted in children or not. But Sandra was sadly in her coffin without that fatherly attention. When Sandra Regina Macaro Nascimento was buried, Pele thought that the chapter with Sandra was gone for good. He thought that he had finished dealing with that particular chapter in his life and he could move on. But he was wrong. 7 years later, after the death of Sandra, the children of Sandra revisited the case. They took Pele to court and won. And the court forced Pele to pay alimony to the children. Reports do indicate that Sandra was added to the will of Pele when he died. Then the question now one will ask is, why will Pele wait until his own death and the death of Sandra before he will now acknowledge that Sandra was his daughter for him to now add her to his will? We should always try to show love to people while they are alive, but not when they are dead. What lessons can we learn from the life story of Pele? Although Pele is regarded as the king of football, unfortunately, he was not a king in his own family. He could not show that rulership in trying to bring his family together. Although Pele is regarded as the master of football, he was not a master of his desires. He allowed his desires to dictate to him how he should live his life. Unfortunately, Pele will forever be remembered as the man who refused to take responsibility for the child he brought to this world. We should all remember the saying that goes, as your star shines the brightest, remember it is at that point that the devil is knocking on your door. Thank you very much for being with me from the start of the story up to this very time. But I know you have also learned a lot from this story. I pray that God will grant you the strength that as you excel in other areas of life, you will not fail in your family life. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again in my next video. Please, if you are new to this channel, can you kindly click on the subscribe button, press the notification bell, like this video, let me know what you think about this story in the comment section. Share with me your experience. Let me know what you think about this so that I will be able to learn more. If there is a popular personality that you will want me to do a video about, just let me know in the comment section and I will do a video and let you know about it. Thank you very much for your time, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.